going on, everybody? It is Jake. Sorry for checking out my phone. So I'm here to read from book 1. I'm gonna see if I can go an hour. I don't know. I doubt I'm gonna sit here for an hour and read, but we'll see. So I'm gonna skip the introduction because it's long. It's really weird. The first page of the sessions, which is what all this is about, starts on page like 60 something, I think it is. So it's really, or like 30, but it's really weird how this introduction is incredibly long. Never seen an introduction last like 50 pages, which is crazy. But one thing I will show you guys is that there are really cool pictures. It shows when they're getting ready to actually, do. It reminds me of like, and I just saw the word in here, so I mean it makes sense, but it does remind me of like a seance type of, like this picture right here reminds me of some like electroshock therapy stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? Like some old, interesting things. So I find that very interesting. And then this is the lady, obviously I want to give her credit. This is the lady who basically channels the messages. So if you want to imagine it in your head, like, like if you want to see her channeling and saying what I'm reading, that's kind of what it is. Okay. All right, so it starts on page 65. So yeah, that's crazy. But all right. Session 1, January 15th, 1981. All right, I am Ra. I have not spoken through this instrument before. We had to wait until she was precisely tuned as we send a narrow band vibration. We greet you in the love and in the light of our infinite creator, which I said to a couple people. If you guys have seen the YouTube channel, I think it's called The Event is Coming Soon. It always starts with that. It always starts like, we greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. So when I read this for the first time, I was like, oh, that's where they got that from. So that was interesting. We have watched your group. We have been called to your group, for you have a need for the diversity of experiences in channeling, which go with a more intensive, or as you might call it, advanced approach to the system of studying the pattern of the illusions of your body, your mind, and your spirit, which you call seeking the truth. We hope to offer you a somewhat different slant upon the information which is always and ever the same. At this time, we would be glad to attempt to speak to any subject or question which those entities in the room may have potential use in the requesting. Do you have a specific purpose, and if so, could you tell us something of what your purpose is? We communicate now. We are those who are of the law of one. In our vibration, the polarities are harmonized, the complexities are simplified, the paradoxes have a solution. We are one. That is our nature and our purpose. We are old upon your planet and have served with varying degrees of success in transmitting the law of one, of unity, of singleness to your peoples. We have walked your planet. We have seen the faces of your peoples. However, we now feel the great responsibility of staying in the capacity of removing the distortions and powers that have been given to the law of one. We will continue in this until, shall we say, your cycle is appropriately ended. If not this one, then the next. We are not a part of time and thus are able to be with you in any of your times, so that's always cool to hear. Does this give you enough information from which to extract our purpose, my brother? Yes, thank you. So, all right. We appreciate your vibrations. Is there another query? I've heard the name Ra in connection with the Egyptian. So this is like the most basic, if you want to hear about like Ra specifically, here you go. I've heard the name Ra in connection with the Egyptians. Are you connected with that Ra in any way? Yes, the connection is congruency. May we elucidate? What do you not understand? Could you give me a little more detail about your role with the Egyptians? The identity of the vibration Ra is our identity. We as a group, or what you would call a social memory complex, which when you read this book, that is in like every page. Let's see. We as a group, or what you would call a social memory complex, made contact with the race of your planetary kind, which you call Egyptians. Others from our density made contact at the same time in South America in the so-called lost cities, were their attempts to contribute to the law of one. We spoke to one who heard and understood and was in a position to decree the law of one. However, the priests and peoples of that era quickly distorted our message. Ain't that the truth? Robbing it of the, shall we say, compassion with which unity is informed by its very nature. Since it contains all, it cannot abhor any. When we were no longer able to have appropriate channels through which to enunciate the law of one, we removed ourselves from the now hypocritical position which we had allowed ourselves to be placed in. Other myths, shall we say, having more to do with polarity in the things of your vibration that are complex, again took over in that particular society complex. Does this form a sufficient amount of information, or could we speak further? Is there another query? The question was lost because the questioner was sitting too far from the tape recorder to be recorded. So that's fine. Consider, if you will, that the universe is infinite. This has yet to be proven or disproven, but we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding, what you would call your journey of seeking, or your perceptions of the creation. That which is infinite cannot be many, for manyness is a finite concept. To have infinity, you must identify or define the infinity as unity, otherwise, the term does not have any referent or meaning. In an infinite creator, there is only unity. You have seen simple examples of unity. You have seen the prism, which shows all colors stemming from the sunlight. This is a simplistic example of unity. In truth, there is no right or wrong, which, I've said, it's really weird to think that even if people are in the negative, they still ascend, so it's like, it's a whole different system compared, when you're looking at this perspective, basically. In truth, there is no right or wrong. There is no polarity, for all will be, as you would say, reconciled at some point in your dance through the mind-body-spirit complex, which you amuse yourself by distorting in various ways at this time. This distortion is not in any case necessary. It is chosen by each of you as an alternative to understanding the complete unity of thought which binds all things. You are not speaking of similar or somewhat like entities or things. You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity. You are infinity. You are love, light, light, love. You are, this is the law of one. That was perfect. That was a perfect way to describe it. That's cool. May we enunciate in more detail? No. Is there another query at this time? Can you comment on the coming planetary changes in our physical reality? I preferred to wait till this instrument had again reached a proper state of depth of singleness or one-pointedness before we spoke. The changes are very, very trivial. We do not concern ourselves with the conditions which bring about harvest. If an individual makes efforts to act as a catalyst in general to increase the awareness of planetary consciousness, is he of any aid in that direction, or is he doing nothing but acting upon himself? We shall answer your question in two parts, both of which are important equally. Firstly, you must understand that the distinction between yourself and others is not visible to us. We do not consider that a separation exists between the consciousness-raising efforts of the distortion which you project as a personality and the distortion that you project as another personality. Thus, to learn in the same as to teach unless you are not teaching what you are learning, in which case you have done you/them little good. This understanding should be pondered by your mind-body-spirit complex, as it is a distortion which plays a part in your experiences at this nexus. To turn to the second part of our response, may we state our understanding, limited though it is. Group individuated consciousness is that state of sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind-body-spirit complexes, which are within the evident reach of the mind-body-spirit complex individual or group. Thus, we are speaking to you and accepting both our distortions and your own in order to enunciate the laws of creation, more especially the law of one. We are not available to many of your peoples, for this is not an easily understood way of communication or type of philosophy. However, our very being is hopefully a poignant example of both the necessity and the near hopelessness of attempting to teach. Each of those in this group is striving to use, digest, and diversify the information which we are sending this instrument into the channels of the mind-body-spirit complex without distortion. The few whom you will illuminate by sharing your light are far more than enough reason for the greatest possible effort. To serve one is to serve all. Therefore, we offer the question back to you to state that indeed it is the only activity worth doing, to learn/teach or teach/learn. There is nothing else which is of aid in demonstrating the original thought except your very being and the distortions that come from the unexplained, inarticulate, or mystery-clad being are many. Thus, to attempt to discern and weave your way through as many group mind-body-spirit distortions as possible among your peoples in the course of your teaching is a very good effort to make. We can speak no more valiantly of your desire to serve. May we speak in any other capacity upon this subject. Will you be available for communication? Can we call on you in the future? We have good contact with this instrument because of her recent experiences with trance. She is to be able to communicate our thoughts in your future. However, we advise care in disturbing the channel for a few moments and then the proper procedure for aiding an instrument who has, to some extent, the need of re-entering the mind-body-spirit complex which the instrument has chosen for the life experience of this time-space. Do you understand how to nurture this instrument? No. Could you explain it? We suggest first a brief period of silence, then the repetition of the instrument's vibratory complex of sound in your density, which you call name. Repeat until an answer is obtained. Then the laying on of the hands at the neck region for a brief period so that the instrument may recharge batteries which are not, shall we say, full of the essence of this particular field at this time. And finally, a gift of water into which the love of all present has been given. This will restore the entity, for her distortions contain great sensitivity towards the vibrations of love, and the charged water will effect comfort. Do you now understand? Not completely. I am Ra. We search your mind to find the vibration, and then it says nickname in parentheses. It is a vibration from you, which contains the largest amount of what you would call love. Others will call this entity, and then it says first name in parentheses. The charging of the water is done by those present placing their hands over the glass and visualizing the power of love entering the water. Remember this, that sounds cool. This will charge that very effective medium with those vibrations. This instrument is at this time quite fatigued. However, her heart is such that she continues to remain open to us and useful as a channel. This is why we have spent the time-space explaining how the distortions of what you may call fatigue may be ameliorated. I've never heard of that, so ameliorated. Under no circumstances should this instrument be touched until she has responded to her name. I do not wish to take this instrument beyond her capacity for physical energy. It grows low. Therefore, I must leave this instrument. I leave you in the glory and peace of unity. Go forth in peace, rejoicing in the power of the one Creator. I am Ra. All right, so session 2. So 13. Okay, we're doing good. All right, I greet you in the love and light of our infinite Creator. I am with this mind-body-spirit complex which has offered itself for a channel. I communicate with you. Queries are in order in your projections of mind distortion at this time-space. Thusly, would I assure this group that my own social memory complex is one particular method of communicating with those few who may be able to harmonize their distortions with ours, and that is to respond to queries for information. We are comfortable with this format. May the queries now begin. Alright, so question. I'm guessing that there are enough people who would understand what you are saying, who would be interested enough in it for us to make a book of your communications, and I wondered if you would agree to this. If so, I was thinking that possibly a bit of historical background of yourself might be in order. The possibility of communication, as you would call it, from the one to the one, through distortion, acceptable for meaning, is the reason we contacted this group. There are few who will grasp without significant distortion that which we communicate through this connection with this mind-body-spirit complex. However, if it be your desire to share our communications with others, we have the distortion towards a perception that this would be most helpful in regularizing and crystallizing your own patterns of vibration upon the levels of experience which you call the life. If one is illuminated, are not all illuminated? Therefore, we are oriented toward speaking for you in whatever supply of speakingness you may desire. To teach/learn is the law of one in one of its most elementary distortions. Could you tell us something of your historical background and your contact with earlier races on this planet? Then we have something to start with. We are aware that your mind-body is calculating the proper method of performing the task of creating a teach/learning instrument. We are aware that you find our incarnate, as you call it, state of interest. We waited for a second query so as to emphasize that the time-space of several thousand of your years creates a spurious type of interest. Thus, in giving this information, we ask the proper lack of stress be placed upon our experiences in your local space-time. The teach-learning, which is our responsibility in philosophical rather than historical. My bad. We shall proceed with your request, which is harmless if properly evaluated. We are those of the Confederation who 11,000 of your years ago, so this is probably where the good stuff's going to start. We are those of the Confederation who 11,000 of your years ago came to two of your planetary cultures, which were at that time closely in touch with the creation of the one Creator. It was our naive belief that we would teach and learn by direct contact and that the free will distortions of individual feeling or personality were in no danger. We had no thought of their being disturbed, as these cultures were already closely aligned with an all-embracing belief in the aliveness or consciousness of all. We came and were welcomed by the peoples whom we wished to serve. We attempted to aid them in technical ways having to do with the healing of mind-body-spirit complex distortions through the use of the crystal appropriate to the distortion, placed within a certain appropriate series of ratios of time-space material. Thus were the pyramids created. So that's cool. We found that the technology was reserved largely for those with the effectual mind-body distortion of power. This was not intended by the law of one. We left your peoples. The group that was to work with those in the area of South America, as you call that portion of your sphere, gave up not so easily. They returned. We did not. However, we have never left your vibration due to our responsibility for the changes in consciousness we had first caused, and then found distorted in ways not relegated to the law of one. We attempted to contact the rulers of the land to which we had come, that land which you call Egypt, or in some areas, the Holy Land. In the 18th dynasty, as it is known to your records of space-time distortions, we were able to contact a pharaoh, as you would call him. The man was small in life experience on your plane and was a ... what this instrument would call wanderer. Thus, the mind-body-spirit complex received our communication distortions and was able to blend his distortions with our own. This young entity had been given a vibratory complex of sound which vibrated in honor of a prosperous god, and this mind-body complex, which we call instrument for convenience, would call Amen. Okay, so the entity decided that this name, being in honor of one among many gods, was not acceptable for inclusion in his vibratory song complex. Thus he changed his name to one which honored the sun disk. This distortion, called Aten, was a close distortion to our reality as we understand our own nature of mind-body-spirit complex distortion. However, it does not come totally into alignment with the intended teach-learning which was sent. This entity, Akhenaten, became convinced that the vibration of one was the true spiritual vibration and thus decreed the law of one. However, this entity's beliefs were accepted by very few. His priests gave lip service only without the spiritual distortion towards seeking. So that's, you gotta seek. The peoples continued in their beliefs. When this entity was no longer in this density, again the polarized beliefs in the many gods came into their own and continued so until the one known as Muhammad delivered the peoples into a more intelligible distortion of mind-body-spirit relationships. Do you have a more detailed interest at this time? We are very interested in the entire story that you have to tell and getting into the Law of One in quite some detail. There will be several questions that I'll ask as we go along that may or may not be related directly to understanding the Law of One. However, I believe that the proper way of presenting this as a teach-learning vehicle is to investigate different facets of what you tell us. You spoke of crystal healing, and then in parentheses, one other thing I want to mention is that when the instrument becomes fatigued, we want to cut off communication and continue questions at a later time when the instrument is recharged. If the instrument is suitable at this time, we would like a little information about the crystal healing that you mentioned. There's always room for crystal healing, man. The principle of crystal healing is based upon an understanding of the hierarchical nature of the structure of the illusion, which is the physical body, as you would call it. There are crystals which work upon the energies coming into the spiritual body. There are crystals which work upon the distortions from spirit to mind. They're all crystals which balance the distortions between the mind and the body. All of these crystal healings are charged through purified channels. Without the relative crystallization of the healer working with the crystal will not be properly charged. So think about that, the person has to have that crystalline connection going on to work with the crystals. So that's really cool. The other ingredient is a proper alignment with the energy fields of the planet upon which you dwell and the holistic or cosmic distortions or streamings which enter the planetary aura in such a manner that an appropriate ratio of shapes and placement within these shapes is of indicated aid in the untangling or balancing process. To go through the various crystals to be used would be exhaustive to this instrument, although you may ask us if you wish in another session. The delicacy, shall we say, of the choosing of the crystal is very critical, and in truth, a crystalline structure such as a diamond or a ruby can be used by a purified channel who is filled with the love light of one in almost any application. This, of course, takes initiation, and there never have been many to persevere to the extent of progressing through the various distortions, leavings which initiation causes. May we further inform you in any fairly brief way upon this or another subject? Yes, you mentioned that the pyramids were an outgrowth of this. Could you explain a little on that? Were you responsible for the building of the pyramid, and what was the purpose of the pyramid? The larger pyramids were built by our ability using the forces of one. The stones are alive. It has not been so understood by the mind, body, spirit distortions of your culture. The purposes of the pyramid were two. One, firstly, to have a properly oriented place of initiation for those who wish to become purified or initiated channels for the law of one. Two, we wish then to carefully guide the initiates in developing a healing of the people whom they sought to aid and of the planet itself. Pyramid after pyramid charged by the crystal and initiate were designed to balance the incoming energy of the one creation with the many and multiple distortions, of the planetary mind, body, spirit. In this effort, we were able to continue work that brothers within the Confederation had effected through building of other crystal-bearing structures and thus complete a ring, if you will, of these about the Earth's, as this instrument would have us vibrate it, surface. Very interesting. This instrument begins to lose... Okay, I'm going to skip that. You might mention that originally there was a capstone. Okay, capstone. On the pyramid at the top. What was it made of, and how you moved the heavy blocks to build the pyramid? What technique was used for that? Okay, so he just says they'll talk about it in the next session. Like I said, I'm not going to read off, at the end they always say, what can we do for this instrument? And, it's not really that important. So, Yeah, I'm just gonna see if they have anything else. Okay, so they're talking about how she needs to be in trance. Place at the entity's head a virgin chalice of water. I mean, if you guys want me to read that stuff, I can, but I don't really think it's important. So, okay, session 3. And what are we doing? 25? Okay. My first question is, did we correctly perform the ritual for starting the... Okay, so I'm basically reading that off. Okay, the placement of the artifacts designated to balance the instrument should be placed at the instrument's head for the least distortion of effect. The remainder of the beginning account of purpose is quite acceptable for those speaking desire to serve. Otherwise, the attendant emphasis in mind complexities would not have been affected properly. We caution you to guard against those who are not wishing to serve others above all else from taking part in the beginning or in lending their distortions of mind-body-spirit complex to any session, as we should then be unable to properly blend our distortions with those of this instrument. Should I move the Bible, candle, and incense at this time? This would be appropriate. Okay. I'm going to skip that because it's not really telling me anything. Okay, here we go. So back to the pyramids. At the last session, we had 2 questions that we were saving for this session. One having to do with the possible capstone on top of the Great Pyramid at Giza, the other having to do with how you move the heavy blocks that make up the pyramid. I know these questions are of no importance with respect to the law of one, but it was my judgment, and please correct me if I am wrong, and make the necessary suggestions that this would provide an easy entry for those who would read the material that will eventually become a book. We are very grateful for your contact and will certainly take any suggestions as to how we should receive this information. I will not suggest the proper series of questions. This is your prerogative as free agent of the law of one, having learned/understood that our social memory complex cannot effectually discern the distortions of the societal mind-body-spirit complex of your peoples. We wish now to fulfill our teach-learning honor responsibility by answering what is asked. This will only suffice for what we cannot plumb the depths of the distortion complexes which infect your peoples. The first question, therefore, is the capstone. We iterate the unimportance of this type of data, so I guess that's unimportant. The so-called Great Pyramid had 2 capstones. One was of our design and was of smaller and carefully contrived pieces of the material upon your planet, which you call granite. So granite. This was contrived for crystalline properties and for the proper flow of your atmosphere via a type of what you would call chimney. It's interesting. At a time, energetic chimney, At a time when we as a people had left your density, the original was taken away and a more precious one substituted. It consisted in part of a golden material. This did not change the properties of the pyramid, as you call it, at all, and was a distortion due to the desire of a few to mandate the use of the structure as a royal place only. Do you wish to query further upon this first question? What did you mean by chimney? What was its specific purpose? There is a proper flow of your atmosphere, which, though small, freshens the whole of the structure. This was designed by having airflow ducts, as this instrument might call them, situated so that there was a freshness of atmosphere without any disturbance or draft. How were the blocks moved? I think he says they were moved by thought. I forgot. Let's see. You must picture the activity within all that is created. The energy is, though finite, quite large compared to the understanding or distortion by your peoples. This is an obvious point well known to your people, but little considered. This energy is intelligent. It is hierarchical, much as your mind-body-spirit complex dwells within a hierarchy of vehicles and retains, therefore, the shell or shape or field and the intelligence of each ascendingly intelligent or balanced body. So does each atom of such material as rock. When one can speak to that intelligence, the finite energy of the physical or chemical rock body is put into contact with that infinite power which is resident in the more well-tuned bodies, be they human or rock. Okay. With this connection made, a request may be given. The intelligence of infinite rockness communicates to its physical vehicle, and that splitting and moving which is desired is then carried out through the displacement of the energy field of rockness from finity to a dimension which we may conveniently call simply infinity. In this way, that which is required is accomplished due to a cooperation of the infinite understanding of the Creator indwelling in the living rock. This is, of course, the mechanism by which many things are accomplished which are not subject to your present means of physical analysis of action at a distance. I am reminded of the statement approximately that if you had faith to move a mountain, the mountain would move. This seems to be approximately what you were saying. That if you are fully aware of the law of one, you'd be able to do these things. Is this correct? The vibratory distortion of sound faith is perhaps one of the stumbling blocks between those of what you may call the infinite path and those of the finite proving/understanding. We are precisely correct in your understanding of the congruency of faith and intelligent infinity. However, one is a spiritual term, the other more acceptable perhaps to the conceptual framework distortions of those who seek with measure and pen. Then, if an individual is totally informed with respect to the law of one and lives the law of one, then such things as the building of the pyramids by direct mental effort would be commonplace. Is that what I am to understand? You are incorrect in that there is a distinction between the individual power through the law of one and the combined or societal memory complex mind, body, spirit understanding of the law of one. In the first case, only the one individual, purified of all flaws, could move a mountain. Okay. In the case of, and that reminds me because I'm a big alchemist, so that reminds me of when you find the philosopher's stone inside, it's kind of like you go up the ranks and you come back down here so you can basically, incorporate everything into all of this. Like, if that makes sense. But I'm not going to get into that right now. Let's see. The progress is normally from the understanding which you now seek to a dimension of understanding which is governed by the laws of love and which seeks the laws of light. Those who are vibrating with the law of light seek the law of one. Those who vibrate with the law of one seek the law of foreverness. We cannot say what is beyond this dissolution, and that's another alchemy term, of the unified self with all that there is, for we still seek to become all that there is, and still are we Ra, thus our paths go onward. Was a pyramid then built by the mutual action of many? The pyramids which we thought/built were constructed thought forms. Okay, so that's where I was talking about created by thought. Pyramids which we thought/built were constructed thought forms created by our social memory complex. Then the rock was created in place rather than moved from someplace else. Is that correct? We built with everlasting rock the great pyramid, as you call it. Other of the pyramids were built with stone moved from one place to another. So there's clearly a difference. What is everlasting rock? If you can understand the concept of thought forms, you will realize that the thought form is more regular in its distortion than the energy fields created by the materials in the rock, which has been created through thought form from thought to finite energy and beingness in your, shall we say, distorted reflection of the level of the thought form. May we answer you in any more helpful way? This is rather trivial, but I was wondering why the pyramid was built with many blocks rather than creating the whole thing as one form created at once. Which is interesting because I had that vision a couple nights ago of that pyramid. I told a couple people. It was weird. I connected to some beings, and even though I was talking verbally, they're communicating to me telepathically. And it seemed like the sun was really, really close. It was extremely bright. It was almost like a golden light was kind of like all around. But it didn't feel like the sun, if that makes sense. And then there are these brown pyramids, but they look like they were created from like one piece. And there's this pink energy around the pyramids. And when I touched it, it created a ripple effect. So if you imagine throwing a pebble or a rock into a lake and you see the ripples, I saw the ripples on the energy just like go, which was really crazy. And then when I woke up, I said the word Dubai. So maybe I have a past life in Dubai. Who knows? But that was very interesting. Okay. There is a law which we believe to be one of the more significant primal distortions of the law of one. That is the law of confusion. You have called this the law of free will. Of course, free will is a very confusing thing at times. Not understanding it, but living it, and then like not getting the result you want. You know what I'm talking about? We wish to make a healing machine or time-space ratio complex which was as efficacious as possible. However, we do not desire to allow the mystery to be penetrated by the peoples in such a way that we became worshipped as builders of a miraculous pyramid. Thus it appears to be made, not thought. Okay. Well then, you speak of the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, I assume, as primarily a healing machine, and also you spoke of it as a device for initiation. Are these one and the same concept? And I read something like 3 or 4 years ago, like a lot of people went into the Great Pyramid and their phones went from being almost dead to fully charged. So maybe a lot of energy, just something weird, you know. They are part of one complex of love light intent sharing. To use the healing property, it was important to have a purified and dedicated channel or energizer for the love light of the infinite creator to flow through. Thus, the initiatory method was necessary to prepare the mind, the body, and the spirit for service in the creator's work. The two are integral. Does the shape of the pyramid have a function in the initiation process? This is a large question. We feel that we shall begin and ask you to re-evaluate and ask further at a later session this somewhat, shall we say, informative point. To begin, there are two main functions of the pyramid in relation to the initiatory procedures. One has to do with the body. Before the body can be initiated, the mind must be initiated. This is the point at which most adepts of your present cycle find their mind-body-spirit complexes distorted from. When the character and personality that is a true identity of the mind has been discovered, the body then must be known in each and every way. Thus, the various functions of the body need understanding and control with detachment. The first use of the pyramid, then, is the going down into the pyramid for purposes of deprivation of sensory input so that the body may, in a sense, be dead and another life begin. I understand that, and I'm really trying to think of a way to put that bit. If it comes to me, I'll let you guys know, but like I got an image of that, like I understand that somehow. We advise at this time any necessary questions and a fairly rapid ending of this session. Have you had any query at this time or space? And then I asked if there's anything they can do to make the lady comfortable, which, again, yeah, not trying to get into. Okay, session 4. So I've almost read 20 pages. I'll probably go for another 10, maybe 15 minutes. Alright. Session 4. I greet you in love and light of the infinite creator. I communicate with you now. When we finished the last session, I had asked a question that was too long to answer. It had to do with the shape of the pyramid, its relationship to the initiation. Is this the appropriate time to ask this question? Yes, there is an appropriate time/space to ask that question. Does the shape of the pyramid have an effect upon the initiation? As we began the last session question, you have already recorded in your individual memory complex the first use of the shape having to do with the body complex initiation. The initiation of spirit was a more carefully designed type of initiation as regards the time-space ratios about which the entity to be initiated found itself. If you will picture with me the side of the so-called pyramid shape and mentally imagine this triangle cut into 4 equal triangles. All right, so I'm going to slow down on this so you can visualize as we go. If you will picture with me the side of the so-called pyramid shape and mentally imagine this triangle cut into 4 equal triangles, you will find the intersection of the triangle, which is at the first level on each of the 4 sides, forms a diamond in a plane which is horizontal. So think about that. The middle of this plane is the appropriate place for the intersection of the energy streaming from the infinite dimensions and the mind-body-spirit complexes of various interwoven energy fields. Thus, it was designed that the one to be initiated would, by mind, be able to perceive and then channel this, shall we say, gateway to intelligent infinity. This, then, was the second point of designing the specific shape. May we provide a further description of any kind to your query? Yes, as I understand it then, the initiate was to be on the center line of that pyramid, but at an altitude above the base as designed by the intersection of the 4 triangles made by dividing each side. Is that correct? And then Ra says, yeah, that's correct. Then at this point, there is a focusing of energy that is extra dimensional in respect to our dimensions. Am I right? You may use the vibratory sound complex, however, it is not totally and specifically correct. There are no extra dimensions. We would prefer the use of the term multidimensional. Is the size of the pyramid a function of the effectiveness of the initiation? Each size pyramid has its own point of streaming in of intelligent infinity. Thus, a tiny pyramid that can be placed below a body or above a body will have specific and various effects depending upon the placement of the body in relation to the entrance point of intelligent infinity. For the purposes of initiation, the size needed to be large enough to create the impression of towering size so that the entrance point of multidimensional intelligent infinity would completely pervade and fill the channel, the entire body being able to rest in this focused area. Furthermore, it was necessary for healing purposes that both channel and the one to be healed be able to rest within that focus point. Is the large pyramid at Giza still usable for this purpose, or is it no longer functional? That, like many other pyramid structures, is like the piano out of tune, so not really. It, as this instrument would express it, plays the tune, but oh so poorly. Maybe it just needs a little bit of love. The disharmony jangles the sensitivity. Only the ghost of the streaming still remains due to the shifting of the streaming points, which is in turn due to the shifting electromagnetic field of your planet, due also to the discordant vibratory complexes of those who have used the initiatory and healing place for less compassionate purposes. Would it be possible to build a pyramid and properly align it and use it today from the materials that we have available? Ra, it is quite possible for you to build a pyramid structure. The material used is not critical, merely the ratios of time-space complexes. However, the use of the structure for initiation and healing depends completely upon the inner disciplines of the channels attempting such work. So inside, you gotta have that intention, that purity. Gotta have that light, man. For sure. Okay. My question then would be, are there individuals incarnate upon the planet today who would have the inner disciplines to, using your instructions, construct and initiate in a pyramid they built? Is this within the limits of what anyone on the planet today can do? Or is there no one available for this? There are people, so it's possible, there are people, as you call them, who are able to take this calling at this nexus. However, we wish to point out once again that the time of the pyramids, as you would call it, is past. It is indeed a timeless structure. However, the streamings from the universe were, at the time we attempted to aid this planet, those which required a certain understanding. Dang, I got some on the page. Oh, it's just ink. Okay. As the streamings revolved and all things evolve, change to a more enlightened view of purity. Thus, there are those among your people at this time whose purity is already one with intelligent infinity. Without the use of structures, healer/patient can gain healing. May we further speak to some specific point? Is it possible for you to instruct in these healing techniques if we could make available an individual who had the native ability? And then Ra, it is possible. We must add that many systems of teach/learning, the healing/patient nexus, are proper given to the various mind-body-spirit complexes. We ask your imagination to consider the relative simplicity of the mind in the earlier cycle and the less distorted, but often overly complex views and thought/spirit processes of the same mind-body-spirit complexes after many incarnations. If I'm losing some of you guys, sorry. It's interesting to read because it's constantly, mind-body-spirit complex, this/that, so it's not hard to read, so if it comes off kind of hard to understand, I apologize. We also ask your imagination to conceive of those who have chosen the distortion of service and have removed their mind-body-spirit complexes from one dimension to another, thus bringing with them in totally latent form many skills and understandings which more closely match the distortions of the healing/patient process. All right, I'm going to stop there because that's a lot, and then I don't want to overdo it. So that was 18 pages. So 18 pages at 46 minutes, and I have to read off like 200 pages or whatever. Man, this is going to take a while. But whatever, it'll be fine. I'll have some channelings, and then I'll do this, and then, let's say I want to take a break from the channelings or I get tired. Boom, I got something to do, Is there anything else? I know I did that channeling earlier today of, because I had to go back and I watched it. That was really, really cool of Pierre and of Daniel to come in and talk about the workshop. That was awesome. I asked them to 3 days ago, and I didn't really get a response. And then so the last 2 days, I kind of felt something around me that wanted to talk about it, but that was cool. And I also connected to a lot of reptilians are around right now, man. For real. A lot of them are. And I saw one today, and it was weird. He almost had this it reminds me of a rhino, but not at all. He had this little horn thing on the tip of his nose, which I've never seen before. It was literally small, you know what I'm saying? But it was really weird. It reminded me of, what was that old kid show? The Magic School Bus, I think. That chameleon lizard. It almost kind of had that weird thing going on. But he was a blue reptilian. And then when I was in meditation today, I get this all the time. This is nothing new, but I'm just telling you guys what I experienced. I saw the big reptilian eye just looking at me when I'm in my meditation, which was interesting. And it's weird. I'm going to look more into this, but I was getting that reptilian was coming. I got Pluto vibes, and I've never connected to Pluto before, so that was weird. Anything else? Oh yeah. There's 2 things that I experienced that I forgot to tell you guys because I had so many other things, thinking about channeling or have a specific topic I want to talk about. I would record a video and then be like, crap, I forgot to talk about this. So, 2 things. One of them is, I know you guys have seen those videos. Obviously, you guys probably check out Secure Team. If not, go check out his channel. He has 1 million subscribers, and he just does the whole, UFO sightings. Kind of going off topic, I've always wanted to say to those guys, it sucks because if you use this spiritual connection, you would not have to have this, oh my god, there's a UFO, what can it be? We're so past that, you know what I'm talking about? So I've always wanted to say, like, man, I wish those guys would use this, but, everyone has their own path. But anyways, I know this shuts off in 10 minutes, so I'm going to hurry up. You know how there was that rock that people saw floating, that really long, like, kind of like cigar cylinder, shaped rock, and people are saying, oh, it's a ship or whatever. I told Ivan about this when the day that was released. So it was 3 days before that came out. I was doing dishes downstairs. I think I was just listening to music, chilling. I was doing dishes, and I started getting, like, not a download, but like I started feeling something was coming in. So I kind of, like, quieted down and kind of was like, okay, like, what who wants to speak to me? What is spirit leading me to? And all I got was, remember the cigar shaped rock or craft. And I was like, okay, like, this is pointless. What's so interesting about this? Are there going to be any beings that are coming in the cigar-shaped craft that are, like, make contact with me or something? I don't know. I had no idea, so I kind of shrugged it off. And then, like, 3 days later, I saw that, and so I immediately was like to Ivan, I'm like, dude, I was like, I can't believe this happened. Like, this is insane. He was like, that's really weird. And then I had a really cool vision one time. Oh yeah, I got my old work shirt, my 2 men in a truck. So this is really interesting. So Pierre is very close to me, and he showed me this vision one time. And basically, a good way to put it for you guys to visualize it, imagine like the Ghost of Christmas Past, where like the spirit takes the guy and shows him experiences, and he's having like a different perspective on it. I was in meditation, and this is when I was practicing how to separate me here and to go into like the higher dimensions or whatever, and just like communicate with other beings and separate myself. And then Pierre contacted me, and then out of nowhere, I was on this weird like ship thing. It had to been like a massive ship, like I'm talking massive. But there was all this white stuff, and Pierre was there, and he was kind of just like follow me. And I'm like, okay. So he brought me into this huge room. And there were like 200 to 300 people. And I mean, obviously, because I'm going to get into what this means, obviously there's more people than that who who come into your life for a reason. But there was a big meeting, and it had to do about me. And I'm like, this is very awkward. Like, this is egotistical, like, why does it have to be about me? But anyways, he was like, no, watch. And I saw my parents. I saw like specific teachers. I eventually I think I saw Jim there. I saw a couple other people, and it was really interesting. It was like a big table of a mixture of faces of people I knew, and then beings. And then there were like some, soul etheric beings, like some were physical, some weren't. But basically it was a meeting, and it was showing how every single person has this meeting before they're born. And it's kind of like a meeting of what's going to happen, in your life. Let's date this out. You're going to have these people because you need to learn this experience. It's kind of like if you think about when you die, and you get that like life review. It's almost like going over it before you start the life. And I got that every single person has these. So it was very interesting. Because, like, I was like, man, like, all of this is a huge, it is a system. But it's a system not so you can fail, but so you can succeed, I mean, obviously. But that was really, really awesome. That was just really cool. I really appreciated it. And then I was in meditation today, and I saw a woman, and I tried getting a name, and I've never had it before where they just don't say anything. So I don't know if you guys have had that. But it was this woman with these like dark eyes. Like, she didn't look negative, but she had like dark eyes. I couldn't see anything but dark. Long black hair. Kind of had the Yael eyes in a way, but I didn't get Yael from her. I got Maldekian, which made no sense because the name Maldek just came to me. So I was like, it's interesting. Anything else? I can't really think of anything else. Like I've told you guys before, I'm far from a vegetarian or a vegan. I gotta have my meats, unfortunately, but I always bless it. And sometimes I'll see them, and I had that a couple days ago, so I don't know if I've ever told you guys about that. I'll literally bless like the meat or whatever that I'm gonna eat, and I say, you know, thank you, you're helping me on my physical, which will also help my spiritual journeys. I bless you, God, you know, please send much white light and support to this being right now, and take away the negativity and the pain that they experience here, and please take it away from me inside me. And I saw that again a couple nights ago, so that's weird to see like an etheric cow being, you know what I'm talking about, not physical, but like a ghost cow thing, but it looked very humanoid, very weird. But I get that all the time, so I don't know if I've ever told you guys about that. Really random. So I'm gonna go for now. I may do a channeling tonight, I don't know. Kind of tired, so I'll probably do it like Wednesday or something. Like I said, I only want to do channelings like 2 or 3 times a week. I don't want to do it every day, because if I do that, then I'm not learning, and I need to learn. So there you go. All right, have a good night, guys. I'll talk to you later. Peace. If you guys want me to keep continuing these readings, I will absolutely. Let me know your comments below. Be very vocal. I don't care. We're here to grow. So, all right, y'all. Peace.